Oh, turns out that the new Mustang Mach E, keep wanting to call it a Mach 1, or would it be a Mach 3? Who knows? Turns out it's coming out soon, and you got lovers and haters. A lot of the haters because of a four-door, which is kind of ironic because Ford had actually thought of making a four-door back when they came out with the first one, and also had a wagon concept and decided against it, I guess. Now keep in mind this is before the Camaro, so the only alternative that you could really compare it to would be the Vet, which was in a completely different niche also, which was what the Thunderbird was for. And well, look how that one turned out in the 70s or 80s. So if I remember right, they even had a four-door Thunderbird in the 70s. We're not going to talk about that, thank God. That was a mistake. But everything in the 70s was kind of a mistake, so whatever. No, had they come out with a four-door in the 60s, though, of the Mustang, it wouldn't have been that crazy because you didn't have the two-door only Camaro to compete with. And given that it was based on the Ford Falcon architecture, of course, if you remember right, the Ford Falcons also had a four-door option. And then they had the sport version like the Futura V8, 4-speed, whatever. And then the Sprint, 6 cylinders, which all of these options more or less carried over into the Mustang when they come out with the Mustang. Except that instead of the Futura, they had the GT. So, going back all the way to here, now, present, it's really not that crazy. Plus, people like me can see the appeal. I mean, we've been talking about it a while. Back when people were drawing these, and I had a feeling that Ford was kind of feeling this out to see how maybe the market was for it. And we've been talking about it like, wow, they need to do it. They really need to do it. I didn't even have a clue about the electric, only option. I was just saying, I wish they had a four-door Mustang just like they got the four-door Porsche, and then you can get Audi. I've had a Lexus LS400, a sports luxury sedan with V8 rear-wheel drive, four-door. It's really hard to find that nowadays in America. You had the G8 for a little while with, GM's. There again, it's a cool concept. It's a GM. The motor, the LS motor's great. They outlast all their vehicles because workmanship, And then when you look into Australia, me and my wife would always talk about, man, I wish that we could get a Ford Falcon, the Aussie version, here. And I could have a Ford V8 rear-wheel drive four-door sedan with a GT suspension, and it's an actual it's a literal sports car, just like that G8 or the GTO, or like a Charger SRT8. Ford didn't have anything to compete with that, right? Or even a crossover version would have been even cooler, right? But we didn't even have a sedan. The Marauder was just a Crown Vic with murdered out paint and wheels. Really, I mean, it was an Interceptor. Ooh. You can get those for $4,000 now. It really wasn't anything different, but nothing really truly sporty. And I know we've had some little iterations here and there, but nothing truly remarkable. Nothing, I've owned 4 Mustangs from 1965 up to 98. 4. and, well, 5 actually. One was a Cobra, 79 Cobra. But just back and forth generations, right? On the Super Coupe, Thunderbird, I need 4 doors. I'm on, going into the 4-door life as I got older. I got 4-door Subaru Forester Turbo, all-wheel drive. Run 13s, load it up, pull a 4-wheeler, pull a motorcycle, whatever I want to do, or go to the track with it. Tuner, run the boost up, run down a couple of Mustangs. No hate, wish I still had mine, but 4 doors and a tow hitch. Well, she's in school to go into the medical field. I'm working in automotive, and we're going to be looking at, we got a house. We're going to be looking to get a vehicle in a few years to replace the Camry, or my Impreza wagon, and Mustangs, man, but it's impractical. I'd love to have a newer Mustang, but we're not going to be able to have 3 or 4 vehicles that we're spending, owing 40 grand on a piece. That's just completely impractical. We got to pick and choose, right? One of us is going to be driving an older one. One of us is going to be driving a new vehicle, probably. And this just makes sense. The new Mustang Mach E, it makes sense. Now, I do wish it was a hybrid, in the sense that not like the C-Max, more like the Chevy Volt, because I'm in electronics, I'm in automotive, and it makes sense to me. Instead of having a gasoline motor driving the vehicle with electric assist or whatever, same thing Subaru did. I hate it. Like, it's cool and all, but they should have went a different route. What makes more sense is having a fully electric vehicle, which the new Mach E proves, and Tesla and all these other electric sports cars. They prove you can have a fully electric vehicle capable of going, 200-300 miles. They can do 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. Right? Now, the Mach E front trunk is a really cool idea. It should be an option. And when I say that, here's what I have in mind for a future iteration of it. There's plenty of room in there for a 800cc, maybe, really small, maybe a 30 horsepower, 40 horse generator, something like a motorcycle engine size, right? You can get a lot of power for very, 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 very small fuel consumption. And the reason I say that is, if you could have like a 5-gallon reserve tank, which on an engine that size is hours and hours of use, okay? Pulling a vehicle, 80-mile-an-hour headwinds, motorcycle, plus the way the motorcycle and the rider, and traffic, you're getting 50, 60, 70 miles a gallon, right? If it's sitting there idle, or only turning the generator, and only doing it when needed to keep the batteries at least 50%, not wait until they're completely depleted, but keeping them maintained. It'll keep the batteries conditioned, for one, make the internal batteries last longer, and take a little load off of them, because when they start discharging, they're going to get hot. But if you keep them maintained in the middle somewhere, instead of charging them tip top, bottoming them out, and charging them tip top, bottoming them out, it's not good long term. Same thing with laptops, same with phones. But if you maintain it somewhere in the middle using a gasoline onboard generator, dude, you would be able to, okay, first of all, you got to think of the market. GQ and Esquire has commented on the vehicle, they like it. And they rightfully assumed people like me looking to expand their family, they want a new Mustang, they can't really just throw 50 grand down on one and then still don't have an SUV or a bigger vehicle for everybody, right? So what we're doing, we'll have a used Mustang or an old school, like got a 66, still got a 66 model, that my grandfather gave me when I was 16, and we've had it ever since. Not getting rid of it. I love the new Mustangs. Not happening. Not getting rid of it for a new one. That's my sports car. But this fits a niche that we still want a newer one, but we also need a family car. Okay? If you added the onboard generator, we would be able to use this vehicle to go out of state also, right? Because you can charge it and go a long ways, but then what? Say you're going 2 or 3 states to a destination before a stop that night. You can't just stop somewhere for a couple hours just because the vehicle needs charging. You're looking at a family vehicle. This isn't a city commuter like a Leaf where they drive it right back home that night. They charge it. Then it doesn't matter. So, and a lot of, especially where I live, the infrastructure for quick charging isn't in place to where everywhere you run into McDonald's or run into a gas station to get food and go to the bathroom, these places, the infrastructure's not there. They do have gas, you see. So, in rural areas, going out in the country, going through the mountains, going to the beaches, places like that, going exploring. So, having an electric vehicle would allow us to get out of the house more and explore. But the caveat there is that once you're out, what do you do to refuel it quickly? You can't. So my suggestion is to take an already good infrastructure that's been built around the Mustang and the Mach E and partner with someone reputable like Kawasaki, Yamaha, same way Toyota did with Yamaha. I mean, Yamaha was building their heads for the high revving ZZ motors and the Camry XRS, yeah, XRS, the Matrix XRS, Matrix thing revved like $8,000, right? You can't tell me they can't build a reliable small generator engine, okay? Or Honda, somebody like that. But these companies have zero problem partnering with automotive companies at all. Yamaha was building those same engines and heads for Lotus. That's where that was derived from. So, you wouldn't have to use an existing Ford motor, because at present, unless they use the Euro motors, because I know over there they have smaller than 1 liter in some of their vehicles, like a little 3-cylinder. And it's all that it would require, really. Maybe even a 2-cylinder. Smaller the better. They would just have to figure out what wattage output would it take to quick charge, right? Which could be derived from the home quick charger. It's easy. It's just numbers. And then what generator would it take to produce that kind of an AC current? And then what horsepower would it take to turn that, and figure out efficiency ratings for that as far as mileage and fuel usage per hour per se. And it can be done easily. Matter of fact, I mean, I'm not going to say that if I had one that in 10 years, once it was paid off, that I wouldn't actually try to do it, because all it would take would be, as far as prototype wise, would be yank the cooler area, trunk area out, and mount it in there. A little 2-cylinder Honda motor or something. Parallel twin that didn't, V-twins vibrate. Parallel twin, boop, 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 boop. And just see. Pair it up with a generator and, AC generator, maybe 5,000 watt generator, it's like this. About, yay long, say maybe a foot or two long, about that big around. And it's got mount bolt holes, right? You just pair it up with a U-joint and a short shaft to whatever gasoline engine and a controller box. And that's it. And run it in and mount the quick charger that goes in the house back there in the trunk. Run the wiring and see what it does. And see what kind of fuel usage you get out of it. And then figure up your range and all. I'm telling you, it would be designed a lot like the Chevy Volt, except not a Chevrolet. And, dude, and see, that being said, then you would be able to use the vehicle for more stringent, how do I put it, like load usage, right? In the mountains and the hills, traveling in the mountains, elevation, towing. I have yet to see many of the electric vehicles rated for towing, but the RAV4 hybrid that sucker's got a buttload of torque. It's actually quicker than the gas version. They're all-wheel drive. A lot of the Mach 1Es, right? The Mach Es can be had in all-wheel drive. It makes sense. And you've got the load divided up instead of just one motor. It's divided into two. If you guys don't believe that the Mach E has the torque to pull, all you have to do is get online and pull up numbers. The thing's going to have the GT with the two larger motors together, 460 horsepower. But get this, 600 foot-pounds of torque. That's more than most turbo diesels, horsepower and torque rating. And you don't think it can pull a motorcycle up through the mountains? Come on. Ford needs to nail it down, fine-tune their battery cooling systems and motor cooling, and they really, really need to work on making this thing optional with an onboard small generator, auxiliary generator. They've got to. They would, or maybe if they need to perfect it now, be working on it already ahead of the game. And then if GM comes out with a little crossover comparative to the Mach E, they need to whip that one out. And already have the bugs worked out, towing worked out, everything. The suspension option to support towing, small, stuff like that, to where, sway, all that. They had to have it on the board, ready, production tested, drive tested. Nobody's even got to know that it has an onboard auxiliary engine. It looked like a regular Mach E, right? And that's the beauty of it. They could road test it. Nobody would ever know. And that's, I'm telling you, I'm thinking of holding out until they do it because of the versatility. I can't afford to give up the versatility of being able to tow motorcycle, lawnmower, four-wheelers, whatever. Nothing major, right? Nothing I can't pull with my Impreza. Just saying. You see Imprezas pulling, police cars and trucks and cars and sometimes 18-wheelers out of snow with the all-wheel drive. It's a car, you know. I can't give that up until they make this thing where you have an onboard auxiliary generator. And I guarantee you, if you do that, if GM comes out with something comparable to the Mach E, they need to whip that sucker out and be like, boom. Because that'd be the ace in the hole for people like me, I'm telling you. So, the motor has the torque and the horsepower, and then the auxiliary motor would make it practical so that if you were pulling a motorcycle or whatever, your lawnmower, or, you know, anything from the store, whatever, boards, you know, my aunt, you know, a lot of people are into this antique stuff. She had to go buy a big Tahoe XL to be able to haul stuff. Well, she doesn't even like the Tahoe. It's too big. But to be able to pull anything, she thought she had to go get this thing. 600 foot-pounds of torque. Looking at it, I'm looking at the numbers up here. It's not necessary with this. She got one kid. She doesn't need 3-row seating. She doesn't need any of that. 600 foot-pounds of torque. Now, if she goes up to Canton, which is 3-4 hours away, the time she gets up there pulling a trailer, it'd be dead. Unless it had an auxiliary onboard engine generator, right? And that would enable people to do this. And, you know, a lot of people do this for business. They do. They want an electric car for business. They travel a lot. Traveling nurses, traveling in the medical field, but they've got to have the long range and not just charge it up once, goes 500 miles, then you're stuck all night. Or cut that in half if you're pulling some luggage or something on a trailer. No, we need, you get there, you fill it back up, bam, get on the road again. And this Ford needs to listen. I mean, I know that I'm not one of their engineers, and that's fine. I should have been. I could have gone to school for it, but I couldn't do the algebra. But I'm telling you, they need to ask people and survey, and without letting the cat out of the bag, because I guarantee you, if GM gets wind of how well the Mach E sells, and they put that Volt technology in a Camaro-based crossover, it's done. They've got the Blazer back out now, and it almost kind of resembles the new Camaro. I'm telling y'all, they put that Volt architecture in there before Ford's ready with one. Y'all are going to be, y'all would have set them up for success by this. And then, once the Mach E sells good, it'll be proof of concept for GM. And then all I got to do is copy it with the Camaro and then throw the Volt technology in it. So, y'all might want to get on the ball, because if y'all don't, I guess I'm getting a new Forester or something. I mean, or the RAV hybrid. So, anyways, I like it. I would get the GT, but that's just me. Yeah. About the vehicle itself, though, the GT is, you know, it's going to have Magna Ride 0 to 60 in mid 3-second range, so 3.5, somewhere in there. That's insane. That is just insane. With all-wheel drive, so it hooks. It's not just gonna, you know. And like I said, you know, from my experience with the all-wheel drive, it takes stress off of, you know, when you're pulling two wheels with 400 horsepower. You know, you snap axles, you twist suspension, pulling the control arms if it's independent. You know, it just stresses everything out really bad. I've snapped U-joints. I've done all kind of stuff. Snapped a U-joint in the 66 with a 6-cylinder. And broke the rear axle yoke. So, yes, with 400, 500, 600 horsepower, yeah, you can do it. But when you divide it up with the all-wheel drive, it's less stress on your axles, less stress on your CV joints, less stress on your control arms. And with this being electric motors, it's divided between two motors, so each motor has less load at any given time, runs cooler. It's gonna be pretty awesome. They're looking at 300-mile range, so I was not exaggerating. The rear only, at least, will have a 300-mile. The GT, for all of its, you know, 600 foot-pounds of torque, is still going to be around 260, depending, and then of course depending on AC and all that, which is, there again, where I live, it's hot, and in the summers, your AC is going to be running wide open. It's a given. So, and then we like light bars, we like stuff like that, so, because we have deer everywhere at night, so, you know, that's got to be taken into account. But if they came out with this model later down the road with the onboard generator, there again, it wouldn't be a problem. I like the look. The interior touchscreen, for me, it's too tall. It's too much. The climate control should be just regular. And don't get me wrong, I hate the ones in the new Fords, or the newer Fords, like the 14 Escape. My grandmother still hadn't figured it out. It's not very self-explanatory at all. And they also forget that even though that we are able to learn it young or whatever, and we're used to it, a lot of the people buying these vehicles are older. And because they're the ones with the money. You know, a lot of people don't understand why you would market to older folks. You know, you're marketing to these kids. Sure, they love it, but they can't afford it. You know, when the Subaru Baja came out, I flipped my lid when I was in high school. I couldn't buy it, so it didn't matter, you know. And then by the time I could, they were, you're 10 years old. Well, by then, it didn't sell. They gave up on it. They didn't even make them anymore. They made it for 4 years. It's not because there wasn't a market. It's because the market for it wasn't old enough to buy them yet. And so they need to take into consideration that if they go too far ahead without this extra stuff being optional, I wouldn't buy it if it was option. I don't need it. You know, I like navigation, but it's on my phone. You know, I can stick it up there. Where do I stick my phone to charge it and take calls? Oh, it's built into the car. Ooh. Well, I'd rather just use the phone with the Bluetooth going through the radio and do that with a cigarette lighter adapter. And, you know, it should be optional. But optional. A lot of people don't care for it. My grandmother doesn't know how to use it. But the vehicle was another probably $5,000 because it had a Sony stereo that nobody cares about and touchscreen and all this other crap. So that would get the price point down. Plus, when you're not running all these extra electronics that you don't need and didn't want, guess what? your range is further. Stuff should be optional. Frankly, I would buy one of these. I would buy one of these with roll-up windows, and I gotta have power locks. Maybe power windows, but not imperative. Plus, it would weigh less. But without the touchscreen, how do you change it? You can't even change the radio in it. You can't. And I know that a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, what would you want to?" Well, what if you knew how to do aftermarket stereos? I don't know, but it's not bad. I would do it. I just think 15-inch screens retarded. Everybody's doing it now, but whatever. They say that charge from 10 to 80% in 38 minutes on the DC fast charging station. So that's not bad at all. You go in Walmart, once there are fast charging stations, you could go in Walmart, come out, car's basically charged. Not bad. But like I said, the car is coming out now. The charging stations are later. So the way I saw it was, you still need to equip the vehicle to not depend on these. And that being said, the generator makes sense, you know, when you look at it like that. So anyways, I like the cooler idea in the front. It's pretty cool. And like I said, maybe one day I'll if Ford doesn't do it, by the time I have one paid off, then I'm going to do it with an onboard generator. So, just letting y'all know. And then I can hook my motorcycle up, pull that sucker all the way to Tennessee, and unload it right through the mountains. And it don't matter if we got a cabin in the middle of nowhere that, guess what, doesn't have a charging station. It'll work fine. So, and anyways, my only other question is, hey, can we get a lift kit for this thing? Just kidding. Only kind of kidding. Anyways, thanks for listening. I hope you like it. Look up some specs, look up some videos on it. I think it's got a lot of potential. Don't hate on it just because it's a four-door Mustang. Don't hate on it just because it's an electric Mustang. It's going to be pretty awesome. And like I said, people like me, we don't care. It's sporty, it hauls, but the slow single motor rear wheel drive one, the base model, does 0 to 60 in around 5 seconds or less. No complaints. You know, in high school, we were roasting tires with my 91 Dakota 5.2 liter V8, 0 to 60 in 6 or 7 seconds. So, yeah. No complaints at all. Oh, and you don't have to use premium gas in it. So, there's that. Anyway, keep it up. Build us a self-charging hybrid. Please. Please.